I've had some of you ask me to do a program on my application for the CIA position and what I went through during that application. A lot of people are interested what you have to go through, so we're going to do a show on that today. Just going to tell my story, what I went through to get hired by the CIA, and it's quite CIA rather. It's quite unique. The CIA only accepts one clearance, and that's its own. It doesn't accept, if you've been with the U.S. Air Force with a top secret SCI clearance, doesn't matter the CIA, you got to go through their process and get their clearance. So I appreciate my viewers and my sponsors on Patreon that support my mission, essentially to continually expose the deep state and shadow government every time I'm able to get my hands on a piece of information about that. And of course, the deep state shadow government has come into plain view more than any time in our history. So, and that's good. So this all started, I had a friend, I won't mention his name because I haven't asked permission or gotten permission to use his first name. I probably think he wouldn't want that anyway, so we'll just call him a friend. I found out, which I didn't know, that he was working for the CIA. I was like, wow, I did not know that. Wasn't supposed to know that. He said, listen, why don't you put in an application with the agency and I'll turn it in for you in headquarters. And I told him, I said, yeah, right. With my background, are you kidding? It's a waste of time. And he said, no, just fill it out, give it to me, and I'll take it in and turn it in. So I filled the application, extensive application out. I gave it to him and just wrote it off that, okay, well, see you later. 3 months later, I get a phone call. Is this Kevin Shipp? Is it a lady? Yes, ma'am. This is Miss X. We understand that you have applied for a position with the Central Intelligence Agency. Are you still interested in applying? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, okay, we will continue with your processing. Click. So I thought, well, they haven't seen any information on me yet. About a month later, I had some friends start calling me saying, hey, man, 2 guys in a suit showed up at my door asking questions about you. What's going on? Did you commit some kind of crime or something? And they look like FBI agents. And I said, gee, I don't know what's going on, but it must be some sort of investigation. And I thought, geez, I hope this related to my application. It turned out that, of course, it was. So they were all convinced it was the FBI. It was not the FBI. They don't do background investigations for CIA top secret clearances. But you know, it makes you kind of paranoid. These dudes in dark suits are knocking on the doors of your friends and family and people that knew you in college. And that's where I thought it was all over. 3 months later, and this is how much time this takes to apply for a position with the agency. It takes up to a year. 3 months later, I got another phone call. This time it was a man. Is this Kevin Shipp? Yes, sir. Are you still interested in a position with the Central Intelligence Agency? I said, yes, sir. He said, we'd like to come into CIA headquarters and have an interview with an agency official. And I said, you sure? So he gave me a time and date to report to CIA headquarters. And that day came, and I met a CIA escort at the main gate of headquarters. She escorted me in, up the steps into the main entrance to the building, the lobby. Of course, walked across the big CIA seal, through the turnstiles, past all the security officers and their federal police, really, with the top secret clearances. They're unique, very unique. I wound up becoming the chief of training for that entire force, and there's some of the best people I've worked with. So anyway, she escorts me up down this long hallway and sits me in a chair and there's a desk sitting. She said, have a seat and I'll check to see if he's ready for the interview. And I said, yes, ma'am. So I sat there, geez, maybe 15 minutes. She comes down the hallway and says, he will see you now, follow me. And we walk down a corridor with doors, all with combination locks on them. And I walk into a big office, and here is this silver-haired fellow sitting behind his desk, chain smoking on a cigarette. I was back in the days when you could smoke in government buildings. So he's sitting back, chain smoking. He says, have a seat, Kevin. I said, yes, sir. I sat down in the chair in front of his desk. And he said, I got a question for you, Kevin. I was like, yes, sir. He goes, have you ever broken the law? And I thought, oh my gosh. Now I'd come out of my serious partying heathen ways, and I had committed to telling the truth, just a decision I made personally. And so I thought to myself, well, let's just let it all hang out. So I went into a long litany of, I guess, broken laws that I had done. For example, I had gotten into a very major radio station in the Northern Virginia area, climbed over the barbed wire fence and climbed all the way to the top of the radio tower and touched the blinking light on top. Coming up to K Street, my friend and I were joking around, so I literally climbed out while we were moving, climbed out. It was a convertible GTO. Climbed out and stood on the hood like I was a hood ornament. And told him that story, told him about my beer drinking, pot smoking days in college, and sat back to myself and said, well, that was it. I got this far. That's pretty cool, but it's all over now. And he leans back in his chair and he goes, blows the smoke out of his nose. He goes, I got no problem with that. You want to continue with your processing? I said, uh-huh. So the meeting was over. I was dismissed. It was probably 2 weeks later. I get a call again from Miss X. Kevin Shipp, yes, ma'am. We would like to schedule you for your CIA polygraph exam. And I said, sure. She goes, can you report to headquarters on such and such a date, such and such a time? And I said, certainly, ma'am. And she said, gave me the address of where I was going to have my polygraph. It was not in CIA headquarters. So it was in a special polygraph division. Showed up at that building, and I was escorted into the waiting room in the polygraph division. And seated there was probably 8 or 9 people waiting for their psychological surgery. So we all sat there, and everybody had kind of a friendly nervousness. They all were like, hey, so you got your polygraph test today? Yeah, well, I got mine too, and just trying to talk the time away. But it was, thinking back on it, wasn't funny then, but it's kind of funny now. And of course, later in my career, I wound up being a polygraph examiner. So I saw the other side of things. The examiner came out and said, Kevin Shipp, it was like a doctor's office. You're going back, like I said, for surgery, but this time it was, as I mentioned, psychological surgery. When we walked, he escorted me down this long corridor of doors, blue doors. All the doors were shut. And the strange thing was, is you could not hear a pin drop in that entire area and from any of those closed blue doors. I was escorted into my polygraph room with an open blue door, and the examiner said, Kevin, have a seat. So I sat in a seat against the wall, and I was looking right at the polygraph chair with all the instruments. And of course, that is pretty intimidating when someone goes in for the first, second, or third time. So he said, sit down. I sat down, and he goes, okay, Kevin, before we hook you up to the instrument, I got to ask you a question. Have you ever broken the law? Oh gosh, there was a question again. Yes, I have. He goes, why don't you tell me about it? So I went through the same list of law breaking that I had given to the agency official. And he says, okay, let's hook you up. He says, sit down in the polygraph chair. So I sit in the polygraph chair, and he puts the pneumatic tubes on my chest, finger plates on my fingers, the blood pressure cuff on my arm, cranks that sucker up. It almost, well, it does. It hurts so tight. And we went on with the polygraph test. Took about an hour in my case. And when it was all said and done, I mean, they fillet your personal life. And so we went through, personal things you don't even tell anybody else. So, of course, I had a lot of skeletons in my closet from my partying days. And a whole lot of beer drinking, and a whole lot of pot smoking, and a whole lot of breaking beer glasses in bars. On and on it went. then I get the call. Well, let me explain this. As I walk out of the polygraph room, I said, because the whole thing is just a giant nervousness. And I said, well, how did I do? And he said, well, I can't tell you how you did. You'll hear about that, but I can tell you did okay. I was like, whoa, man, that was a relief. That was good news, but I still had to wait. Then I got the call. Kevin Shipp, yes, this is Mr. So-and-so. You have been accepted by the Central Intelligence Agency for employment. We would like you to report at such and such a building at such and such a time, which I did. And it was an outer agency building, which of course I can't disclose. But I was placed in a hiring pool where I sat, me and about 9 other people, where I sat for 7 long weeks, not being told anything about what was going on. And for 7 weeks, 8 hours a day, you got to sit in a chair or at a bare table and do whatever you can do to keep you busy. Then the day comes, the officer in charge of that pool, he's a senior agency briefer, and I was, by the grace of God, later got his appointment and wound up doing the same thing. But he said, Kevin, good news. You've been accepted. You have your clearance. You can report to headquarters at a date and time. And I did, started my career, and actually became the senior briefer as he was for all of the new employees of all levels who came in to the CIA. And it's just it's amazing how things work out. I went on from there to be into the director of operations. I had been, for several months, been the assistant team leader of the anti-terrorism team. And we were tasked with going into terrorist-ridden countries and protecting our people from terrorists, people in the embassy who were being followed by some of these groups. And our job was to protect them, whatever we had to do. So that's the process for getting into the CIA and what you go through when you get your job. It takes about a year. They lose a lot of people because, people wait 3 months, they got to get a job. So they bail because they can't wait a year. So that's the reason that the agency developed this hiring pool where I sat, excuse me, for 7 weeks. Is they want to keep those employees that have made it through the clearance process. They don't want them going off working for another company or seeking a job elsewhere. So a great idea. They put you in a holding pool and they pay you. So and that keeps people from dropping out and not continuing. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope you enjoyed that, and there'll be more programs, of course, coming. I'm going to do one of these about every 2 weeks, about twice a month at the least. So there will be more coming, and I hope that you'll join me.